From hazardously deadly decorations to violent carolers, these are terrifying ancient Christmas traditions that we pray never return. Victorian-era Christmas cards were wild. Today's holiday cards feature cozy, pretty scenes of snow, reindeer, Santa, but back in the day, people were sending each other stuff like this. Yeah, Merry Christmas, here's a polar bear about to eat a guy's head. Or how about something like this? Yes, a man screaming in horror because he's transformed into an onion. Happy Christmas indeed. I love these cards. The artwork is fantastic, and they're just downright strange. But not only did these cards feature images that are creepy by modern standards, they must have been unsettling back then too. Intentionally so. I mean, there's some seriously surreal imagery here. Cards back then weren't just about sending well wishes, they were a statement. People in the Victorian area loved showing off their wealth and status, so sending a card wasn't just about the message inside, it was about starting a conversation. Some cards were so strange, they'd become a topic of discussion at parties. Christmas imagery wasn't as defined back then as it is now either. In fact, the entire idea of Christmas celebrations as we know them didn't really take hold until a bit later. So for Victorians, a Christmas card could feature anything from a cheerful holiday feast to whatever the hell this is. Now the cards are kind of cool, but here's something that's the opposite of cool. Putting lit candles right next to a dry, highly flammable tree sitting right in your living room. That can get hot real quick. Too hot. Sounds nuts, but people used to put candles on their Christmas trees, before light bulbs were a thing. And yeah, this caused some problems. The tradition of placing candles on Christmas trees started in the 17th century in Germany. Back then, families would light actual candles and attach them to branches of their Christmas trees. It was nice looking if you could avoid setting your house on fire. Unfortunately, that was a pretty big if. As you can imagine, live flames sitting on a tree would often lead to disastrous fires, turning your pleasant holiday get-together into a full-blown horror show. By 1908, insurance companies actually stopped covering Christmas tree fires altogether because it was just happening too much. Then came the light bulb, and suddenly the danger of burning down your house with your holiday decorations was a lot less likely. In 1882, Edward Johnson, a friend of Thomas Edison, decided to show off Edison's new invention by wiring electric light bulbs around his Christmas tree in New York City. It was an instant hit and made headlines, but even with the invention of electric lights, it still took a while for the average person to get on board with the idea. Light bulbs were expensive and it required an electrician to safely set them up. It wasn't until the 1920s that electric Christmas tree lights became affordable and accessible to everyone, and that's when the old candle tradition finally went away for good. We've come here to claim our right, and if you don't open up your door, we'll lay it flat on the floor. Well, that sounds like a pleasant greeting. That's what I want to hear during the holiday season. Threats. Well, that's just one lyric early carolers would sing while going door to door back in the day. The word wassail comes from an old English phrase meaning be well or good health. It's also a spiced alcoholic drink, but wassailing was an old tradition, kind of the proto version of Christmas caroling, but a lot less pleasant at times. The tradition involved singing to bless apple orchards or homes. But there was a darker side. In some cases, the carolers demanded gifts or food in exchange for their blessing. Failure to provide offerings could result in a curse or a prank, and sometimes the carolers would become violent or aggressive if not treated well. Caroling was often expected, especially among the lower classes. The poor would travel through the wealthier neighborhoods singing in exchange for food, drink, or money. If the host didn't offer anything, some carolers weren't shy about turning things sour. In the early days of caroling, the groups of people who went door to door were sometimes rowdy, violent. In 16th century England, the Christmas feast was a lot different looking than it is now. Turkey, ham, how about a boar's head? Just the head. This was the centerpiece of upper-class Christmas dinners, and it came complete with a song dedicated to it. A whole feast built around a giant roasted boar's head, and guests singing to it. It wasn't some casual decoration. The boar's head was brought in with a whole ceremony, and to make it even more unsettling, they'd stick candles in its mouth, giving it the illusion of breathing fire. The tradition started as a display of wealth and power. Only the rich could afford to serve a whole boar, so it became a symbol of wealth. So serving just the head, well, why? They'd eat the rest of it eventually, but the head was kind of a statement. We can afford the whole boar, so we're gonna bring the head out on a plate and sing a song about it, turn it into a whole thing. A lot of imagery and traditions we practice at Christmas today have some pagan stuff mixed in. A lot of the stuff is very fun and festive, but there are elements of old traditions we've understandably left out like the blot. So you're living in ancient Scandinavia, it's winter, things are rough, it's cold, you've got bad harvests, or maybe the gods are mad at you. So what's the solution? You hold a blot. A blot was a huge sacrificial ritual designed to win the favor of the gods and ensure that life would get a little better, whether it was better crops, better health, or just better weather. These ceremonies took place at key points in the year, around the solstices and equinoxes, so close to the winter solstice, spring equinox, summer solstice, and autumn equinox. People would gather in large groups on the estate of the local chief, and a bunch of animals would be sacrificed, mostly horses. Then the BLOOD of the animal would be sprayed on the people and around the temple or whatever sacred place they had using twigs. After that, they'd cook the meat from the sacrifices and bless it. The chief would hand out beers, and everyone would raise a toast to Odin, the other gods, and their ancestors. I like the latter part of that tradition. I'd just rather not be sprayed with animal guts right beforehand. Continuing with the Vikings though, when they made the switch over to Christianity, they went full on, which comes as no surprise, and their holiday celebrations took on a whole new meaning. The Vikings used to drink Yule ale to honor their Norse gods, but now the ale had to be blessed in the name of Christ and Saint Mary. This wasn't a suggestion, it was the law, and if you didn't brew and bless your Yule ale properly for 3 years straight, you could be banished from the country and lose everything you owned. Pretty high stakes for something as simple as brewing ale, but the Vikings were kind of famous for being hardcore. It was kind of cool that they incorporated their traditions into the new Christian faith, rather than just scrap their old ones entirely. Those who switched to Christianity didn't lose out on the big holiday celebrations, they just celebrated them in a new way. Christmas wasn't always celebrated on December 25th. It wasn't until over 300 years after Jesus' death that Pope Julius I officially picked that date. Before that, people marked Christ's birth on a few different days, March 29th, January 6th, or even sometimes in June. December 25th was chosen because it lined up nicely with the Roman festival of Saturnalia and the winter solstice. Saturnalia was a wild celebration filled with non-stop drinking and role reversals. So slaves and masters would swap places for the day, schools shut down, and the wealthy would give out gifts to the poor. Now, okay, that all sounds like good stuff, but this holiday would also get out of hand. It was a bit like a real-life ancient version of the Purge in some ways, in that no criminals would be punished. And that aspect of the holiday is something most of us will agree is best left in the past. This next strange tradition comes from medieval England. Back in the day, the church would pick a young boy, usually from the choir, to become the boy bishop during the Christmas season. He'd get all decked out in fancy bishop robes and would take charge of the church, even getting to lead services. Just kind of silly on the surface, but there was potential for things to go south. Some of these young guys didn't exactly follow the rules, and they could get a little carried away with their authority. There are stories of boy bishops causing chaos, ordering strange and sometimes very inappropriate things to happen. There are elements of this tradition today, but not to the level that it was back then. Next, we have the Yule cat from Icelandic folklore. This legend centers around a giant, terrifying cat that roams the streets during the Christmas season. If you didn't get new clothes before Christmas, it was said that the Yule cat would come for you. This massive cat was said to eat people who didn't have new clothes, especially if you'd been lazy or hadn't worked hard enough during the year. It was a story told to get people to finish their work and earn their holiday gifts. The Yule cat is still part of Icelandic traditions today, but the story was definitely more popular back in the day. How about instead of receiving gifts from a rotund, jolly man and his magical deer, you have a witch crawling down your chimney instead? This is the story of La Befana, the Italian Christmas witch. According to legend, the Christmas witch was a kind old woman who was invited by the 3 wise men to join them on their journey to visit baby Jesus, but she declined and then regretted it later. As punishment, she was condemned to travel the world delivering gifts to good children on January 5th. While she might leave candy or toys, youngsters who'd been naughty could end up with sticks, a lump of coal, or worse, a curse.
Coming in number 10, we have mistletoe. This one is supposed to be so cute. You have some mistletoe hanging in a doorway, and then 2 people pass under and they got a kiss on the lips. Yeah, maybe it's cute back in the 80s, but there's no way that's gonna fly now. You think because there's a little piece of foliage hanging in a doorway, you get to lock lips with me no matter who you are? Are you trying to catch a charge, my guy? To be honest, I don't think I've ever seen mistletoe outside outside of a movie, so maybe it wasn't something normal people would put up in their house, it was just something that Hollywood would use to slip in some jokes into Christmas movies. But I think that this tradition has been long dead, and if you see it in someone's house, you might want to pretend like you gotta take a call and go outside and then drive home before you have any dinner, because that person is a certified creep. The only people who are gonna be kissing me on Christmas is the family dog, if they have one, because sometimes you gotta kiss a dog right on the lips. It's not weird, it's just healthy for your soul. Coming into number 9, we have Red Santa. Why is Santa the color red? Well, if you know your history, the original representation of the King of Christmas was him all dressed in green. So how did he become famously red? Well, that's because Coke took that image and then traded his green clothes for something that was a little bit more friendly to their brand. It's actually that Coke made the big dude red. Mind you, red was already a color that was associated with Christmas, which made it easier for them to make the shift, but now he is known around the world as being in a big red suit. So every year when Christmas rolls around, you can bet all your Christmas presents that Coke will put out a commercial that is going to have the big dude in a red suit so Coke can sell more product that year. As a kid, you thought Santa was just something to inspire a little bit of Christmas spirit, and then you learned that the whole thing has been a trick to make you spend more money and buy more Coke. That is just a terrifying thought. And guys, remember to hit that like button because it really helps us out. Coming in at number 8, we have the origin of Santa. So where did the big fluffy dude come from? Well, there are a few ideas. Some say that he's actually from the pagan faith, that the character of Father Christmas was some forest dude who would come out of the foliage and hand out gifts to kids. That sounds super sus. There's no way that I would let any kids get some gifts from some dude who just walked out of the forest and looks like he's wearing pajamas. But if that isn't the origin, then the other option is actually he came from a German tale of where Santa was followed around by Krampus, who would be the evil version of him. In this tale, the two of them work together and separate the naughty from nice kids. The nice kids get gifts and the naughty kids get stuffed in a sack and then turned into food. When you know Santa used to be associated with a guy that dark, it really changes his picture in the long run. Coming in at number 7, we have Coming Down the Chimney. The classic tale of Santa is that he comes down the chimney to give you your gifts, so if you live in a condo, no presents for you. It looks like you're gonna have a hollow Christmas and have to pay some condo fees. And even though it seems like it would just be a little nice addition to the big red dude's mystical story, it actually has a lot to do with more ancient tales. There are dozens of stories from around the world that tell of some sort of horrible monster that would use your chimney as a way to sneak into your home. There were stories of witches in Ireland that would crawl down your chimney, come into your home and take your kids and then turn them into stew. Yikes! And there was a horrible creature in Pennsylvania back in the 19th century that would come and do a very similar thing as to what Santa would do. This was a goblin-esque monster that would give nice kids fruit and then punish bad kids with a whip, which sounds a lot like Santa and Krampus. So maybe the big dude from the north is actually affiliated with these creeps, or he just took their delivery system for himself because he realized how good it was to get into houses. But for real, if you live in a basement apartment and you're not gonna get anything, I feel like those people need presents more than anybody else. Coming in at number 6, we have He Sees You When You're Sleeping. We all know the song, you better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why, Santa Claus is coming to town. Well, it's a great song to tell kids to behave around the holidays, but in that song he also says he sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake. Excuse me? We got another creep on the list. This holiday that we thought was all about being nice to people and spending time with your family secretly has a ton of creeps in it. Also, it's a bad idea to make your kids think that the only reason they should be nice is because Santa's watching and because they're gonna get some presents out of it. Because once they find out that Santa doesn't exist, they're not gonna have any motivation to be a respectful person. They should want to be a good person because it's the right thing to do, not because they're getting paid for it. Cut out being a creep, Santa, and kids, learn to be nice for the sake of being nice. Coming in at number 5, we have a depressing snack. So why do we leave out milk and cookies on Christmas Eve? Well, it's because Santa's going to come through and he's gonna be hungry and you have to give him a little fuel so he can keep making these trips around the world and spreading love. I don't think a diet of sugar and dairy is the best way to energize the dude who's trying to deliver presents to the whole world, but to each their own. But apparently this started as a Depression era tradition. People leaving giving out milk and cookies for St. Nick was something that was popularized in America during the Great Depression. This was something to show how grateful you were for having enough food and milk to spare. So Santa was coming in and taking food from struggling families during the Great Depression? How dare he? How could this dude be so heartless? We must cancel Santa. Coming in at number 4, we have caroling. People coming to your door to sing you a nice song, that is in the Christmas spirit. That sounds so sweet. How could something like that have a dark past? Well, when people started caroling, they didn't use this to just go to someone's home and sing to them. Carolers used to be vandals. They would go to people's homes and then they would sing to them, and in exchange for singing, they wanted food or a place to sleep or sometimes money. And if you didn't give them any of those things, they would change their tune. They might start singing a song that was more violent, like about burning your house to the ground. And if you didn't give in after that, they would start to destroy your property, and they might even break into your home and attack you and steal your things. Basically, carolers were some of the most dangerous people around Christmas time. They would go from door to door threatening people through song and trying to steal from them. That's not really the Christmas spirit that we're used to. Coming in number 3, we have Good King Wenceslas. This is a pretty famous Christmas story of a king that would go around and what he would do to try and be kind. People think that this is largely an inspiration for Santa Claus because he would find poor people and give them small gifts so winter wasn't so harsh on them. Now what people don't know is this was an actual dude. Wenceslas, the Duke of Bohemia, used to travel around and give people goods, and it turns out he wasn't liked by everyone. In our version of the story, they leave out this part. Apparently his brother didn't like him and ordered to have him killed, which he was, publicly. Yeah, they leave that part of the story. Yeah. Coming in at number 2, we have the color red. We all know what Christmas colors are, green and red. Everyone knows that. But do you know what the colors signify? Well, the color green is about eternal life, and the color red is all about the blood of Jesus. Yeah, excuse me, what? Yeah, the thing that you thought was a fun themed color attached to the big red coat Santa wears? No, that's not it at all. Of course, Jesus was apparently born on Christmas, and even though we forget that sometimes, the day is really about him. So when we see red plastered everywhere, it's supposed to show that Jesus spilled his blood so we can have a nice holiday. I mean, that really takes some of the cheer out of it. I thought we were supposed to sit around and get drunk and argumentative with our families, but apparently we're supposed to also remember one of the most horrific moments in human history. Well, that really takes the fun out of the fondue set you just opened up. Coming into the number 1 spot, we have The Nutcracker, a holiday movie that is a certified classic. When people think about the music of The Nutcracker, you automatically think about snow falling from the sky and a bunch of people celebrating together as they dance, or something about ballet. I have to admit, I've never seen The Nutcracker, but I know that it has a lot to do with Christmas, and I looked it up for this point. The movie is messed up. It's about a girl who is transported to a world of living dolls, which sounds like a kid's dream. It's a cross between Toy Story and the Chronicles of Narnia, but that's until things get way darker. So the little girl, who is the main character in the movie, tells her family about this magical world. They think she's crazy, so she moves to the doll world and decides to never come back. So one day they wake up and their daughter is gone. After they already thought their daughter went crazy, so they probably just thought that she ran away from home in the middle of winter. That's depressing!
Starting us off with number 10 is caroling. Now, I've never had any carolers come to my door, but that's probably because I live in an apartment and that would be weird. But it's been a thing since the 17th century, but it wasn't as nice and cheerful as it is now. Carolers or wassailers used to arrive at people's houses completely unannounced and demand the residents give them their finest drink and food. And these demands weren't just verbal. Sometimes they'd threaten violence or rape, they'd physically destroy the property and the homeowner's items, and sing lyrics like, "If you don't open up your door, we'll lay it flat upon the floor." One Catholic minister was against caroling, so much so that he rallied against it, saying it drove people to rioting and fornication and everything that just wasn't Christian. Who knew carolers were actually just dicks? Coming in at number 9 is Father Christmas, the big jolly man himself. Now, most people believe his origins can be traced back to St. Nicholas, who we'll talk about later on. But through research, I found out that Harper's Weekly magazine published what's meant to be the first ever illustration depicting the modern Santa Claus, and that was in the 1860s, so it's really not that modern. In that illustration, he's wearing green robes, not the red ones we're used to, and he was even mixed with the legend of the Green Man. The Green Man was this person who ruled the forest forests and woods in pagan belief. And last time I checked, pagans and Christianity are not the same thing. In Germany, for example, Father Christmas had a dark side, and that came in the form of Krampus, who was said to be his evil helper. He was the bad cop to Santa's good cop. So Santa was either Saint Nicholas, he was either a pagan forest man, or he was a Batman and Robin duo with Krampus. Neither of any of which are that good, actually, now that we think about it. Santa Claus, you've done me wrong. Betrayed me. At number 8 we have milk and cookies. Now, Santa Claus is a lucky guy, man. He's getting all these cookies and milk from every house he visits. Honestly, no wonder he has that much energy to just go around the world. But this tradition was actually rooted in everyone being poor during the Great Depression. What a plot twist, I know. Leaving cookies and milk and maybe some carrots for reindeers originated in America during the Great Depression. Since most families were going through major economic hardship, parents tried to teach their kids that it was important to give to others even when they didn't have much to give, and to obviously show gratitude for any present that they did get that year. But 80 years later, everyone's still doing it out of the niceness of their hearts, or maybe they just want to bribe Santa for better presents, but it's not gonna work, my man. That's gonna get you straight on the naughty list, and you're not getting any presents for that. Facts. Straight facts. Filling our number 7 slot is St. Stephen's Day, which is the 26th of December. Now, Irish Christmas celebrations go beyond the 25th, and up until very recently used to involve bird murder. Yes, you heard that right. St. Stephen's Day used to be celebrated by killing a wren, putting it on top of a decorated pole, parading it from house to house while singing and demanding money for their deed. It's like the meme where it's like, no one. Irish people demanding money for killing a bird. Anyway, going on the wren or Jenny hunting became a thing because apparently St. Stephen himself was betrayed by a wren, and the practice continued till the 1930s, which really wasn't even 100 years ago, you guys. So really, we need to stop bird murder. We should have stopped bird murder a long time ago. Now, at number 6 are baubles. I've literally always wanted to decorate a Christmas tree. It's been my dream for my entire life, and I've never done it. Just remember, you guys, if I die and I didn't do it, just remember my soul will not rest. It will come back to haunt you. Now, traditionally, the act of hanging toys and treats from your Christmas tree was German in origin, but baubles and glass-blown spheres date back to the 17th century and originated from a very spooky idea in Britain and Ireland: witch balls. Yup. Now, witch balls were these glass spheres that had silver inside them and were believed to shoo away evil spirits. When they were first created, they were put in windows to neutralize the evil eye of any passing witch by reflecting it back at her or confusing her with the pattern. People thought the bright colors of the balls would entice and trap the witch and other dark spirits inside of it. Some people even filled them with holy water for even more protection. Either way, they somehow moved from the window to the tree. I don't know how, but I'm guessing it was because people wanted even more protection during a holiday that was so very holy. I think that's a pretty good guess. Coming in at number 5 are Christmas parties. Now, everyone loves those cheeky Christmas parties where there's Secret Santa and a bunch of alcoholic hot chocolate and everyone's just getting fat and drunk. Who wouldn't love that? I love that. Well, firstly, I'm gonna hit you with some facts. Now, Christmas wasn't always celebrated on the 25th. The birth of Christ was only confirmed on that date 300 years after the fact. Before that, his birth was marked on at least 3 different dates, one in March, one in Jan, and one in June. It was just all over the place. Coincidentally, December 25th was also the same day of the Roman festival of Saturnalia and the winter solstice. This festival was dedicated to the Roman god Saturn, and it involved continuous unrestrained drinking, the role reversals between masters and their slaves, criminals were allowed to run rampant and do whatever they wanted, schools were closed, the rich were encouraged to give presents to the poor so they wouldn't be robbed. Christmas parties are wholesome now, but they started off as proper shit shows. At number 4 are stockings. Now, I've really always wanted my own stocking with my name on it just hanging above the fireplace, but alas, my dreams are still just dreams. Now, filling stockings with treats is all fun and games now, but its origins are rooted in poverty and illness. Who would have thought? The tradition apparently started when a 4th century bishop, St. Nicholas, heard an old man complaining about how he didn't have any money to supply each of his 3 daughters with a dowry. And back then, dowries were a very big deal. Any girl that didn't have a dowry wouldn't be allowed to get married and probably would have become a concubine in order to sustain herself. Now, St. Nicholas's heart went out for this old man so much that he snuck into their house at night and saw that they had hung some stockings above the fireplace to dry. He stuffed them with bags of gold, and the impoverished family lived happily ever after. Filling our number 3 slot is mistletoe. Okay, spilling some tea here. I've only ever been kissed once under mistletoe, and that was when I was 12 and it was my first boyfriend. I had butterflies, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Now typically the mistletoe is a plant you're meant to be kissed under, but back in the day it was seen as a symbol of friendship by the Druids. Druids were meant to be religious leaders, mediators between humans and God. They were types of law keepers. This symbol was not received well by religious leaders in England, and so it was banned. Years later, the York Minster Church started holding mistletoe service each winter, where criminals could come to the church with their own sprig of mistletoe and be pardoned for their crimes. So before it was a romantic plant, it was a criminal's God-sent herb. Good to know. Now at number 2 is Good King Wenceslas. Now when I first read that title, I was like, what is this obscure Christmas carol song that no one's heard of? But then I YouTubed it and I was like, wait, I do know this song. Kinda goes like, when the snow lay round about, deep and crisp and even. Now hopefully you guys recognize the song now based on my lovely a cappella version, and now we're gonna just move swiftly on and pretend I didn't do that. So this song is supposedly about a nice king who helps out a poor peasant during a snowstorm. But the inspiration for the song was a real person who died a horrible death. Now Wenceslas I, Duke of Bohemia, was born back in 907 AD. His father died, so he was raised by his mum, who was the daughter of a pagan tribal chief. Fast forward to 935 AD, Wenceslas's brother gave orders to murder him, so he was stabbed repeatedly with a lance while praying in church, and then he was dismembered right in front of the chapel. I feel like if you get killed in a church, surely that's like your straight ticket to heaven, right? That has to be your straight ticket to heaven. If you get murdered in a holy act, surely you go to heaven. I'm gonna put my money on it. Wenceslaus, I see you. Finally, at number 1 is Down the Chimney. So hopefully the only person coming down your chimney is Santa Claus, because we really don't have time for any other shady assholes to be coming through there. But we have had a lot of shady creeping into the homes of families through chimneys, and it is not okay. European legends tell us of malicious supernatural creatures that used to break into houses via the chimney. In the Middle Ages, it was thought that witches came into houses through chimneys and robbed cribs and the babies inside them. In Greece, the Kallikantzaroi goblins were the ones that crawled through the chimney and terrorized families and just stole stuff from them. In conclusion, nothing good has ever come down a chimney other than Santa Claus. Let me just put that out there.
Starting off this countdown, we have Krampus. Nowadays on Christmas Eve, children go to bed all excited, awaiting the visit from Santa Claus. And we all know if you're good, you get lots of toys. If you're bad, you get coal. But back in the day, children who were naughty got something far more worse than coal. They got a visit from Krampus, aka the Christmas Devil. Krampus is this terrifying looking creature that originated back to German Christmas traditions in the 12th century. He's like this half goat demon monster with huge horns, and he's covered in fur. On top of that, he drags big chains as he walks, which you can hear rattling behind him. He also carries birch to hit naughty kids. Sometimes he even is seen with a sack, which he uses to kidnap them. So at the start of December every year, families would share spooky stories about Krampus. Some countries would even have little parades where people would dress up like devils and chase after kids and their parents. Yeah, that does not sound like some festivities that I would like to partake in.
Number 9. Christmas spiders. This one might sound scary, but it's actually based off of a kinda sweet bit of folklore where a family had their prayers answered by a group of charitable and magic spiders. In Eastern Europe, some will put spider webs up on their tree because of this story, believing that spiders bring good luck and good fortune. So while this might seem like some weird Halloween or Nightmare Before Christmas decor, it's actually all inspired by a bit of folklore. The story goes that a widow and her children had tended to their holiday tree all year, hoping that when the time came, they would have enough money to decorate it. Sadly, their funds were low and they were unable to do so when the time finally came. The children were so sad on Christmas Eve, they went to bed, laid down, and cried themselves to sleep. Aww. The spiders heard their cries of misery and decided to do some good for the family. They weaved webs on the tree all night long, and in the morning when the family awoke, they saw the light hit the webs on the tree and watched the webs transform into silver and gold. With this gift of great and magical wealth, the family was never poor again. It's creepy and sweet.
But before we go any further, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up because it really helps us out.
Thanks for doing it.
Coming in at number 8, we have the Carolers.
I have stayed by my bedside till
thought to be fairly annoying for a group of people to come knocking at your door singing sappy Christmas songs. But nothing is worse than witnessing the wrath of the carolers back in the 1700s. Back then, carolers were more like a rowdy group of people that would go door to door demanding food and drinks. If denied, then they would tend to break down doors until they get what they want. Imagine that, having someone burst through your front door on Christmas and start eating all your food. That has to be one of the worst traditions out there. How is that even legal?
Number 7. Holly. Everyone loves to decorate for the holidays, whether it be lights or tinsel or holiday trees or fake snow. Traditionally, a bit of greenery has always been a part of the festive decor, whether it be mistletoe, ivy, or holly. But do you know why we decorate with holly? Holly was used originally because it was believed it protected your home and family against witches. Yeah, true story. Another strange and kind of creepy thing about why we choose holly first when it comes to that splash of green and red is that holly was originally meant to represent the crown of thorns, which Jesus wore. Holly both has thorns and those cheery yet apparently gruesome bright red berries, which obviously in this case would represent beads of blood.
Making our way down the list, number 6, we have Wren Day. This is an ancient Irish Christmas tradition that basically involved killing small birds, wrens. It's believed to date back to the 1940s in Ireland. On December 26th, also known as St. Stephen's Day, young boys would go out wren hunting. Once they successfully catch and kill the bird, they will place it on the top of a pole and then decorate it. From there, they would carry their dead bird door to door. They would typically be dressed in straw masks or would have their face darkened with burnt cork. Then at each house they would sing the Wren Boy song and demand money. There you go.
Number 5. Christmas colors. Blood, you'd think, would be an uncommon part of our holiday celebrations and festive cheer, and yet, the holiday colors we are most used to seeing are red and green, white and gold. White is obviously something that has come to represent snow. Gold represents wealth, though originally it was actually meant to symbolize one of the 3 gifts that the wise men gave to Jesus. The gift, when given, was meant to represent kingship and stands as a symbol of wealth and royalty even now. Green is meant to represent the eternal evergreen and immortality. Red, however, is meant to once again represent the blood of Jesus. So just think about that when you reach for extra cranberry sauce on the holidays.
Moving on to number 4, we have the horse's skull. Nowadays we decorate our homes with trees and bright lights and cute little wreaths. But back in the day in South Wales, people celebrated by decorating a horse's skull and placing it on a pole. This was referred to as Mary Lwyd or Holy Mary. The skulls were decorated with bells and ribbons, and then a sheet was placed over the back of the head. Then they would take their horse skull and go door to door with it, singing and showing off their creation. On top of that, they would even sometimes challenge families to a battle of rhyming insults in Welsh. After that's all done, they would come inside for some food. I personally thought those little elves on the shelves were creepy, but that's nothing in comparison to this.
Number 3. Yule Cat. In Iceland, it's important to make sure you get your hands on some new clothes before Christmas Day, as if you don't, you'll have to face the wrath of the Yule Cat. The Yule Cat is a giant monstrous beast who is believed, according to Icelandic holiday folklore, to roam the countryside, hunting down those who have not yet received new clothes as a holiday gift to wear for Christmas Eve. Initially, people used the Yule Cat as incentive to motivate and scare workers into working harder so they could earn a nice new set of clothing to wear on Christmas Eve. Hard workers would be rewarded with new clothes, and those that didn't work hard enough would not receive any, leaving them to become prey for the fearsome and ferocious Yule Cat.
And at number 2, we have the Snapdragon. This was a traditional game that families would play back in 1600 England. The game, Snapdragon, sometimes called Flapdragon, would involve raisins and almonds being placed in a bowl of brandy that was then set on fire. Then all players would stick their hands in the flaming bowl and try to retrieve the raisins. Once you successfully pull out a raisin, you must extinguish it by putting it in your mouth. Sounds like a very dangerous game to be playing, but believe it or not, mainly kids would play this game. But eventually, the popularity of the game died down as people were getting serious burns playing it. Well, no duh, you're literally submerging your hand into flames and then eating a fiery raisin. Like, what did you expect? There's no way that could have gone right.
Number 1. Perchta. When it comes to tradition and holiday folklore, this one is pretty dark. At some holiday festivals held in Austria, people wear wooden animal masks called Perchten. It's believed that different masks, beautiful or ugly, will bring you different kinds of good fortune. Ugly masks are worn to drive evil spirits away, and beautiful masks are worn to help promote financial gains coming into your life. Perchta is the singular term for these masks in Austria, but Perchta is also a name connected to a malevolent and powerful witch, Frau Perchta, or sometimes known as Birchta, so it can be a P or a B. The witch known as Perchta was believed to punish those who misbehaved and grant a silver coin to those who were good. Oh, so nice, a silver coin. Wonder what you could get with that back then. Probably a lot of stuff, actually. Being bad, by the way, meant working on the holidays or eating untraditional foods on Perchta's feast day. Punishment was severe, and it was said that Perchta would actually open up your body, remove your organs, and then stuff you with straw, basically turning people into scarecrow corpses. Merry Christmas.
Starting us off at number 10, ghost stories. Growing up, my family always watched A Christmas Carol every year without fail. Now, as much as I loved the movie as a kid, I always remember thinking it was a little weird to have a Christmas story about ghosts haunting an old man. But as it turns out, ghost stories were actually a very normal, if not celebrated part of the season back in the day. During the cold winter months, with nothing but a fire to keep you company, families would pass time by sharing tales of spooks and monsters, and that might be why there are so many dark old folklore creatures that only pop up during the winter solstice. Now listen, I love a scary story as much as the next guy, but for me, I'd rather keep that in the spooky season and just enjoy my hot apple cider in peace. Coming in at number 9, Snapdragon. Who doesn't love a good Christmas game, right? Well, if you are looking to keep your eyebrows, I might suggest not bringing this one back into your rotation. Snapdragon was a family game where you'd stand around a table where a shallow bowl filled with a few dozen raisins or really any other small floating fruit or nut would be placed. But here's where it gets crazy. They would fill the bowl up with brandy and then light it on fire. From there, the actual game started, and the goal was to reach into the bowl of flaming raisins, grab one, and then try to put out the fire by popping it in your mouth. Now, maybe I'm just a wimp, but I have scalded my tongue on hot chocolate that was a little too hot, so I'm not sure I'm built for putting out a literal flaming object. Although I am sure the brandy-soaked fruit tasted great after the flames went down. Coming in at number 8, first footing. This ancient tradition started from the idea that in order to have a year of good luck, you needed to have the most fortunate kind of person possible be the first one in your home after midnight of the new year. It was believed the best kind of person was a dark-haired man bearing symbolic gifts like bread, coins, salt, coal, or whiskey, as these represented a year of good food, wealth, flavor, warmth, and merriment. So it was like this strange race to get the most handsome dark-haired man in town to bring you bread after midnight. Now, of course, there were also people who could give you bad luck. Should a doctor be on your doorstep, it was believed you would have a year of bad health, and a minister would hint that a funeral was coming that year. And even worse would be if a woman was the first to arrive. But the most unlucky first foot of all that could greet you at your doorstep was anyone with red hair. Coming in at number 7, Yule Lads. There is plenty of creepy winter folklore that comes from hundreds of years ago, and one of these tales are the Yule Lads. This legend comes from Iceland, and as the tale goes, Yule Lads would appear during the winter season to make young people's lives excruciatingly difficult. They were made up of 13 different creatures that were said to be descendants of monsters, and each had a unique method for wreaking havoc, like stealing farm animals or traumatizing young people in the darkness. But even worse was their pet cat, whose diet was based solely on young flesh. Unlike other folklore creatures, this cat doesn't care if you're naughty or nice. It will eat whatever is in its way. Allegedly, the tale caused such a ruckus around the season that the government eventually banned parents from telling the tale. Next up at number 6, mistletoe pardon. Although it existed through many different cultures' winter holidays years prior, it wasn't until Tudor England when the mistletoe began began its long-standing tradition of being a romantic gesture where one kissed beneath it. And although it's kind of hard to imagine it symbolizing anything but that, at one point in time, the York Minster Church in the UK used the festive plant for a special mistletoe service each winter. During the service, criminals of the town could come bringing a sprig of mistletoe and be pardoned for their wrongdoings and receive forgiveness from God and the church. And while the sentiment is, kind of sweet, I mean, can you imagine if thieves, frauds, killers could just bring a sprig of mistletoe to the church now to solve all of their problems? Well, of course this isn't practiced anymore. Many churches do still have a mistletoe hanging on the altar as a nod to the tradition. Coming in at number 5, the bird. Okay, I know what you're thinking, the turkey is like the calling card of a modern Christmas. Well, while we kept the tradition of a roasted bird, the way that we serve it to the table for our guests has thankfully changed. During medieval times, kings and queens loved a spectacle. They loved being a little extra. And while I can relate to the enthusiasm, I'm not so much on board with the outcome. It was all the rage at the time to serve the bird looking as if it were still alive. So they would carefully skin the bird, being sure that all the feathers remained, roast it, and then sew the skin back on to really give it that being eaten alive look. The most prestigious bird you could serve was a peacock, as it was very exotic, and once the skin was back on, you could bring the colorful bird to your table almost like a piece of art. While I guess you could say, intrigued by this as an abstract concept, I quite literally never want to see this with my own eyes as long as I live. Coming in at number 4, Calacantzaroi. It's said that these mischievous little goblins only emerge from their usual home in the center of the earth during the 12 days of Christmas. Often described as black, furry creatures with tusks, horns, and tails, there are actually many different kinds of these troublesome little goblins, each with their own name and traits. The Calacantzaroi can only ever be seen at night, as they're afraid of the sun and they come trying to wreak havoc. Upon their nightly visits, they will climb into your house either by window or chimney, and then once inside, taunt and terrorize your family until dawn. But luckily, they are not the smartest of demons and won't count to 3, as this number is considered holy. So all you have to do to keep them away is put a colander on your doorstep, and the goblins will be paralyzed by the number of holes and spend all night terrified of uttering the number 3. Coming in at number 3, wassailers. During the 17th century, carolers, or wassailers as they were called, brought a very different energy to the Christmas season. Back then, instead of greeting you on your lawn or at your door with a holiday carol or two, they would show up unannounced and demand the residents' best food and drink to be handed over. And while they did sing in a roundabout manner, it was less about good old Saint Nick and more like a protest or chant that they shouted while threatening violence, destroying the property, and even committing SA. A historian named Thomas Christensen says the lyrics were often something along the lines of, quote, "We've come here to claim our right, and if you don't open up your door, we'll lay it flat on the floor." One minister in the early 18th century spoke out against the practice of Christmas entirely, but especially the carolers, as he complained that the custom drove people to rioting and maliciousness. And while I am the last person that would want to cancel Christmas entirely, I do kind of have to agree with his point about the carolers. Next up at number 2, Hans Trap. In the eastern corner of France lies a country named Alsace, and unlike other places whose demons often take the form of goats or goblins, their lore is about a scarecrow. As the legend goes, a man named Hans Trap, who was notorious for his greed and crooked values, used witchcraft to make a deal with the devil and become a very rich man. But after finding out about his pact with Satan, he was excommunicated from the church and ended up losing all of his wealth and status. With nowhere to turn, Hans went to the countryside and disguised himself as a scarecrow so as not to be found out by the town. But after some time, he began to develop a desire for human flesh and lured a young shepherd boy to his death and cooked him over a fire. But before he could take his first bite, God struck him with lightning and Hans died. But the young people of Alsace were told that the ghost of Hans would return during Christmas, roaming the streets looking for a tasty bit of flesh to devour from badly behaved young. And last up in our number 1 spot today, Frau Perchta. If there is one thing that people feared above all in olden days, was witches. And among them was the terrifying legend of Frau Perchta. This witch originated from Austria, and she comes to see who has been naughty or nice. Often she is depicted as having a beaked nose made of iron and dressed in rags, carrying a long hidden knife under her skirts. But unlike many of the other terrifying traditional visitors, she was not just there for the young in their beds, but for the ladies of the house too. For if you did not have all your flax spun by the 12th night, she would set your unfinished weaving aflame. But worse than that, if you forgot to leave out her bowl of porridge, she would come up to your room, slit open your stomach, and replace your organs with rocks and straw. And I mean, that is much worse than a bit of coal in your stocking if you ask me.